Any discussion? Councillor Manhas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I think we should be leaving the housing up to the private sector. We've tried to build the affordable housing on Sherman Road for the last eight and a half years. We've expedited the rezoning. We have given them relief on the DCCs. We have given them the land. We have given them many other, as well as cash out of our affordable housing reserve. And still, after 8.5 years, we're nowhere. I would like to say we move that $902,000 and move it into, say, capital projects or something like that, and leave housing up to the private sector. I know there's a private equity group right now that have purchased some land in North Cowichan, and they're moving forward with affordable housing much quicker than what the what municipality can build, and probably build at a much cheaper rate, and make it and they can make it actually done in a certain period of time rather than 8.5 years while waiting for Sherman Road.
So, yeah, I'll respond to that, Councillor Manhas. So, to be clear, it's 7 years, it's not 8.5. And for a big portion of it, there was no funding to be available. So this is a social housing project. Social housing projects don't move ahead without funding from senior levels of government. And for up until 2018, we weren't in a position to secure any of that funding. With regards to timelines, I share your frustration. I can't believe how long this is taking, but you talk to any other communities across BC, they're facing the same challenges in getting funding through BC Housing. And I don't want to sound negative about BC Housing. They have got a lot of money through the door, built a lot of units, but many other communities are struggling with this. Ladysmith was part of the fall 2018 announcement for the BC Housing funding. They still haven't finished construction of it. And that's nothing negative about folks in Ladysmith. They're trying their hardest, but it's challenges they ran into with securing the funding. And I know the government's committed to speeding up that process, and we'll be able to report to the public on this, I think, soon, that we've hit a stage with regards to this funding application that I think we're in a position to be announcing some very positive news soon. But this is a chance to waive some of the development cost charges and potentially leverage tens of millions of dollars in funding. And while I think we should be looking as a municipality at looking at ways to help the private sector, whether it's speeding up approval processes, whether it's, like we're bringing in more planning staff to help work through some of the backlog. I totally agree with those measures. Making it easier for, say, carriage houses and garden suites. The reality is, if you want social housing, you need government funding for it. That's how that sector works. It's not realistic to expect the private sector to provide that at the scale that you would through government funding. I know we've debated this before. We can debate it back and forth. I respect your position, but again, respectfully disagree. And we'll just see if council has anything to add before we call the question. Councillor Sash, Councillor Finley, then Councillor Justice.
Thank you, Your Worship. The reason I'm supporting it is from the recent tours we've been having of the social housing projects that have been happening because of the City of Duncan and North Cowichan working to do things like this, putting funding in place, putting land in place, getting things happening so that social at-risk segments of the community are having housing. This is that next segment of it, is that socially supported affordable housing where they might not be at risk, but they need the further left spectrum of the affordability outside of the private market, that where the private market, as Councillor Manhas says, are great and are the ones we need to support to bring affordable housing, but they financially can't, within their means, make it work on that far left spectrum of affordable housing. So this is just part of that full continuum of housing that we need, that next step that help people that are moving out of at-risk housing that we've seen being built on Paddle Road and now in the City of Duncan. So we just need to put that next place for them to move to help them support within our community, and that's why I'm supporting it.
And just to be clear, Councillor Stash, for the audience, when you refer to far left, you're talking about the diagram that shows the spectrum. It's not an ideological thing. It's the
thank you. It's a financial
continuum.
spectrum to no cost borne by the person, and they need full social support and expansion.
Yeah.
The far right is full market, private input.
Yeah.
In cash, it's just market cash.
Of course, yeah.
Yes, it's not an ideological left or right. It's
a
a
it's
spectrum
the
of
continuum
cash.
and the diagram that's often in
Thank
the
you for
housing
clarifying
materials.
that.
Yeah. Councillor Finley, then Justice.
So I'm not in favor of this, because I think if BC Housing is funding, this project, if that's the plan, then the municipality taking funds that, I think we could utilize elsewhere, I don't think is the right decision. And I guess my question is, you know, if we have $902,000 here that we're talking about, is there a way to utilize that to bring down our tax increase this year? And again, help our constituents that are hurting and don't really, or aren't able to afford a tax increase. Is that something we can do? Because I think I did hear that it did happen in one or two other cities through the province. So we're looking at 2.5% to 3%. If we could just bring our taxes down by utilizing that 902,000.
Yeah, Councilor, I'll turn to staff on that. Just to be clear though, by waiving the development cost charges and building fees, while we would provide the nonprofit developer with this funding, it will come back to the municipality and be placed into our DCC fund and then back to our planning department. So we're effectively getting the money back that we're providing to this nonprofit developer. Just quickly to answer your question though, with regards to other options for reducing taxes, I believe we could reallocate this funding to cover some, for example, a capital project we're already covering through taxes, but I'll turn to Mr. Swaby and Ms. Soldair to clarify that.
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Finley, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, you know, if we're giving $432,000 out and then it's coming right back to us, why not just utilize that currently and then let BC Housing take care of the $432,000 up front? Like, maybe I'm missing something on that comment.
And we can probably discuss it for a long time. This goes back to discussions we've had over the last year. When we first started trying to move forward with this project, there was an understanding that a municipality could contribute land was enough for an affordable housing project. What we've learned in looking closely at other projects BC Housing's funded, and some of our discussions with their staff as well, that the expectations have changed. And well, whether we agree with it or not, the province now expects municipalities are going to give much, much more than land. So it's waiving development cost charges, waiving building fees, waiving planning fees, and various cash contributions from reserve funds and various other contributions to make these things happen. Again, whether we agree with it or not, if you look at the projects that the province is funding, and even if you just look at, say, the news releases from BC Housing, you can see that the expectations are changing. So many of the projects, for example, that moved forward in Nanaimo over the last couple of years, they started waiving all these fees to Fino, Victoria. It's, again, whether we like it or not, it's turning into the expectation on the province's side. If that helps. Again, don't have to agree with it, just describing how the world's working right now.
I appreciate the description. I guess the question is that if there are private developers coming forward with affordable housing solutions, I understand this is low income, it's a little bit different, but if a private developer comes forward with affordable housing solution that is truly affordable, then are we going to be in a position, or are we going to be able to provide similar incentives to those private developers?
Yeah, I think I'll go to you in one sec, Councillor Sash. I think once we get to the affordable housing policy, which I'm understanding is coming to council this spring, that's probably the best arena to discuss those possibilities. Would that be right, Councillor Swaby?
That's correct.
Mr. Swaby demoted you briefly.
That's correct. And there's other ways that you can incentivize, but not as complete as we can with these. But yes, there's ways to look at that we could bring forward.
Great. Thanks for the question, Councillor Finley. Over to you, Councillor Justice.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to say something very similar to what Councillor Stash said, and we really need to be careful of seeing this as a false dichotomy. Affordable social housing built by the private sector, as Councillor Manhas was saying, and affordable housing built through BC Housing with a contribution from the Muni are not mutually exclusive. They're complementary, and we need them all.
Councillor Manhas, hopefully to close.
Yeah.
Sorry. Councillor, did you have your hand up before? Okay, Councillor Sash, then you can close. Councillor Manhas.
I don't mind Councillor Manhas going first. So it was just to kind of come full. It was the question of where does it go with what Councillor Finley brought up, because it is a good point. I do think we need, if we have an expectation for on the private spectrum of it, of maybe not social affordable, but truly affordable housing, how can we help developers? Because we can't put the full expectation on them financially, definitely in the interest rate environment that we're in and labor costs, to just say you have to do affordable housing and put all the onus on them. So the question is where do we have that discussion to find ways to support the private industry how can we support them if they have all the right intentions and they want to do it? How can we help them and be partners, not rather saying you have to do this or you don't get anything? So is that through the affordable housing strategy that's coming up, or possibly is that a discussion that there might be small pieces that fit in the economic development committee? Those were just my questions.
Yeah, potentially, and then also the new zoning bylaw as well could
Okay.
be opportunities there to discuss how to
Yeah.
create more room for the private sector to build more of this housing that's gonna meet the local needs around affordability.
Thank you.
Over to you, Councilman Manas, to close,
Yeah,
hopefully.
thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'd like to say that this is the contribution to affordable housing reserve, affordable. It's not to social housing. And so I don't think the affordable housing, we should be competing with the private sector. Again, like I said, again, there's another group that's actually out there, bought some property, they're gonna make it a go of this. And it's truly affordable, over 40% of the units will be affordable. And, according to CMHC, and, so, you know, people are doing that out there, the private sector actually is way ahead of the, governments and moving forward with this, and they'll get done a lot quicker. Also with social housing, the municipality is foregoing property taxes. With the private sector involved, in building affordable housing, you also be collecting property taxes. Municipality will be benefiting.
Councilor Callio to close.
I just want to say that I agree with almost everybody who spoke here tonight, and Chris Justice, Councilor Justice, your point on why can't we have both sides, and, you know, Councilor Manas, I agree with you too. You know, we should have both. We should have this money can go forward towards affordable housing, and then we can also have the private sector, and in the future we can promote that through different ways, through council, you know, bylaws or development permit waves or that kind of thing. And I think that, you know, we need as much of this affordable housing as we can possibly get. The need is there. So I think that if we can work with, you know, private and public, you know, I think that's just a win-win.
Thank you, Councilor Callio. Councilor Justice? To close.
Well, I wonder if it would help at all to ask staff just to tell us what sort of parameters there are on, if we put this money into the affordable housing reserve, what things can and cannot not be used for. I mean, presumably if a private company came and was looking to do some affordable housing, would we be able to take money out and support them with this?
I'll turn to staff, but I know there is strict parameters around us providing money directly to the private sector as a municipality, which I believe is
There
really
is, and
spelled out.
we can't just allocate it to private companies without a partnership agreement. I think it would be best to wait for the report because it really depends on how it's presented. There's portions of a private sector development that could meet the objectives that we have. And then you could implement some policies that deal with DCCs or potentially tax exemptions. But I don't want to go too far down that road until we do some better research for you on what that would look like. My overriding question is typically the private sector does not get into this business. The reason we don't have affordable housing now is because no one wants to build affordable housing. It's not an easy thing to do, and we haven't really defined what affordable means. Affordable typically means below market income, and we have to require that of private developers for a portion of their development through rezoning applications. So I think that's a question that requires a lot of thought, and I do know that there are some ways to incentivize, but it's not going to be the panacea for the private sector to get into the non-market housing business.
Things to look forward to when we discuss the housing policy in the spring. I think, Mr. Swaby?
That's okay.
Okay, okay, time for the question? Yeah, we done with debate? All right, all in favor? And opposed? Councilors Manas and Finley opposed, the motion carries. Now we're at the second part of the recommendation, so it's